All right, I think I'm doing something wrong, guys. All right, waiting for Jane. Hey, Jackie, Kaylee, Craig. Oh, crap. Hey, Dee Dee, I got to make you a mod. Okay, Jolie is all ready. All right, waiting for Jame. Hey, Lori, Donna. Everybody can hear me? All right, I might have to restart this. It won't let Jame join. Okay. All right. I'm going to have to restart this, I think. All right. All right. I don't know what I'm doing because I can't. Here she comes. Here she comes. Yay. Jamie.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
Finally.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I didn't know if I'd get that going or not.
Oh my gosh. We had a little bit of confusion, guys, because when I tried to schedule it, I scheduled it for the wrong time this morning. And it was just trying to get it rescheduled was really hard. And trying to get Jamin just now was even harder. So it's good to see you.
You too.
Thank you. I'm so excited.
I know, me too.
I'm excited to do this and I'm excited to discuss the book. And it's so nice to see everybody. I really appreciate it. Oh my God, Jorgelina, she made it. Yay. So we have a couple of mods here and we're going to be able to go ahead. First of all, I'm just curious, anybody who's watching now, I think we should wait another couple of minutes just to see who comes in. But for whoever is here now, has anybody read the book?
I have.
I have too. And this is the book that I'm talking about. And you can see I've gone through and I've marked off quite a bit.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that we're going to be able to go over some of the high points
Yeah.
and, hopefully provide our audience with some good information. Guys, thanks. Thumb up the live. I really appreciate it. Hopefully, we'll get some more people in, and hopefully, we're going to have a negative amount of trolls. So, thanks, Dee Dee and Jolie, for agreeing to be mods. I really appreciate it. That's awesome. Okay. So, we're not going to waste any time. We're going to get right into it here. The book that we read is called When Women Read Fifth Avenue, and it is by Julie Satow. And this is about the origins of three of the biggest department stores that were in New York City in the early part of the 20th century. Some of them are still, well, no, none of them actually are around today, unfortunately.
No.
So we have Bergdorf Goodman, if anybody remembers Bergdorf's, which was a huge luxury store, Henry Bendel, and Lord and Taylor, which Lord and Taylor just closed a few years ago. And all three of them at one point in their history were ran by female executives, which was really weird at the time because it wasn't typical for a female to be an executive of anything, let alone these huge department store chains that, well, at the time that they started, most of them were one offs, but some of them became chains. And these women were able to rise to the top of their field and do it in their own really unique way. So, one of the things, James, who was your favorite of the three women?
This what if it was one that wasn't one of the three?
Oh,
I
sure.
I loved learning about Jackie Cochran, or was that
Uh-huh.
her name? Yeah, Jackie Cochran. Um, I mean, the women were all fascinating. Honestly, they all had different facets about them. But when I read about you know, Hortense's husband's girlfriend and then reading
Yes.
she had a fascinating life.
Didn't she
I'm like,
though?
yeah, like do a book on her too, because it was really good.
And here's the other interesting thing too. Jackie stayed married to Floyd for decades. And Hortense never really got over it, which was really wild. She would always refer to him like he was still her husband.
And I like what I liked about her was I thought it was a weird coincidence. I think, yeah, it was her, that her sister married Robert Walker, and Robert Walker was an actor and his son was an actor, and
Yes.
I knew of his son because I watched Big Valley, and he had a bit part on that, and then he had a bit part on Star Trek, and I just thought that was a really weird coincidence that out of all the people that were Hortense was related to, that her sister married that actor,
Yeah,
and
that was crazy.
Hortense, I guess, put his son, I or was it the husband? I think it was the son, through like college and everything, paid for him and really supported him. So I thought that was really cool.
I would kind of like to have a story about Buster the Doorman at Bendel. That was just fascinating. I mean,
Yeah,
imagine all
all
the
those
people.
years.
Yeah, and for so long, I mean, he was really like the ambassador of the store. So for the people who didn't read the book, I want to just kind of backtrack for a little bit. Hortense was the woman who ran Bonwit Teller, and her husband Floyd had some people over one day, and they were at dinner, and they were trying to discuss, because he had the store, they were trying to figure out what would make more shoppers go there. And he basically put her up to like being a secret shopper and kind of see how she felt about it. And she really wasn't familiar with it at all. And then she wound up taking over the store. But it kind of was like good for Floyd because it got Hortense out of his hair, and he got to fool around a lot with Jackie, who worked for this famous hairdresser. And Hortense, for years and years, said that she never wanted this and she just wanted her family. And, I think it was just a really poor excuse for just being so upset that she got dumped basically for another woman and she was stuck with this really big business that she turned around and did amazing things with.
Yeah.
So that to me just kind of blew my mind. It's like, talk about bitter and angry. Like, just move on, woman.
Right. Yeah. That whole thing was her. I mean, her life seemed the saddest out of all of
Yeah.
them, for
Oh,
sure.
yeah, for sure.
With her sons and problems with them then,
Yeah.
and yep.
Even her marrying Floyd, I mean, she didn't even really feel any real interest in Floyd. She just wanted to get the hell out of her town.
Yeah, because wasn't that was her second husband, right? Floyd
Yes.
was? Yeah.
Yes. So she just felt any opportunity to just kind of pick up her bootstraps and go.
Yep.
But out of the three, I think that my favorite was Dorothy because Dorothy really worked her way up, kind of by accident and kind of being in the right place at the right time. And how about those little shaver dolls?
Oh my gosh, I'm obsessed.
Me too.
I've been looking online for stuff, and so far I've only been able to find a picture of Elsie with one
Yes.
of the shaver dolls. I'm like,
So,
well,
so these little shaver dolls were kind of like the original Labubu because women loved them as much as kids, and they would carry them around with their handbags. So it was really amazing, like how they really took off, and they were just these little rag dolls, and each one of them. Now I'm trying to. I keep wanting to call her Betsy.
Elsie.
Dorothy's sister,
Elsie.
Elsie,
Yep.
was an artist. she actually designed these dolls and she made them in her house. And the two sisters moved to New York City, and friends of the family who happened to have ties to Lord and Taylor went to see them one day. And then the next day, the execs at Lord and Taylor were knocking, and they wanted to buy like X amount of dolls to put in the store. And this was back in the 1920s. So they put them in the Lord and Taylor store, and they just like blew up in popularity, and they were called the Little Shavers. And every one of the dolls, just like the Labubu, had their own little names. They had their own little stories. And from that point on, Dorothy worked her way up from, just kind of being in charge of the Little Shavers to running the store. And she was also at one point the highest paid woman in the country. And like it was just unbelievable, but still making less than the men. So,
And
but I think that when Gertrude came along, and Gertrude is the woman that ran Bendel, it was the 60s and she had a lot more control. And I think that she was able to do a lot more because these other women kind of paved the way. All right, so we have a message from Ashley. Dorothy seems so clever and like a level-headed leader. It's hard to really know who she was, but I enjoy how she was portrayed. Yes, agreed. Absolutely, because she really enjoyed her work, and she seemed to be very comfortable, and she seemed to really be able to take charge and not let it take over her life. And they said that like she basically was married to the store. She had some relationships, but she really wasn't that interested because this was like her child and her baby. So that was really very fascinating because yeah, she was not really one to be pushed around, but had a really nice way of taking charge, I thought.
I liked one of the things I or underlined in the story about her was about their house and how
Yes.
um a winding staircase led to the dining room downstairs, outfitted in colorful um uh, let's see, I don't know what that's furniture upholstered in pink, chartreuse, and green, and walls that had been hand painted by Elsie with clouds and nosegays. I just like
Yes.
oh, that's just cool. I'm
It
just
sounds so amazing. And I think
right.
because Elsie did so much and she did some hand painting in different areas in the apartment. And I think, wasn't there a picture of part of their house?
There,
I should have marked the pictures off because I thought that that was really
there's this one.
incredible. Yes.
Yeah.
Not in color, unfortunately. And
No,
here is a picture. Here's the little shaver dolls and the display.
yeah.
So that was really very, very cool to see that. And if you come across any of them on eBay or wherever, they are worth a ton of money. A ton. So yeah, so I think when Geraldine came around and she had a lot of ideas, and I always picture Bendel as being what it had a reputation for, which was very sophisticated and the first to put all these European designers on Fifth Avenue and really, you spelled it right, Jolie, shaver, just like shaving. Um, but at that point in the late 50s, it was just like a rundown, ramshackle, tired old place. And I didn't realize that they went through such a slump. And she developed what kind of became the model for all of these interior boutiques in the stores now, where each little department kind of had a department within the department store that she called her street of shops. So it's kind of like when you go to Saks on Fifth Avenue, that there's the little Dior and the little Gucci and the little Louis Vuitton. I mean, it's that same kind of concept where you're walking through and each little area has their own completely individual design and different merchandise. So I thought that that was really, really cool. So, and also, and I knew this, that Andy Warhol, one of his first jobs was to do the illustrations for the ads at Henry Bendel. And they were really known for their illustrations because they didn't really use photos or sketches of typically what was in the store. They would have these really whimsical kind of ads and really like over the top avant-garde window displays. So, and who was it? Was it Dali that did the display for Bergdorf's? Salvador Dali?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or no, Lord and Taylor, wasn't it?
Lord and Taylor. It was Lord and
Yeah.
Taylor. Yes. And he
Um,
had like a massive meltdown, and it was supposed to be very, very controversial. And if you know his art, you know that it really has to be incredible. So to be there and to see all of that must have been just amazing. But one of the things that I really wanted to talk about, which is always like a topic among luxury people, is, you know, copying and doing knockoffs, et cetera, et cetera. But if you read this book, and if you didn't know before, you realize that fashion has a history of doing dupes and copying from designers. And that's one of the things that they did at Lord and Taylor with their, you know, American designers. They promoted a lot of American designers, but they were kind of doing their designs based off the European designers. And in certain cases, they would send somebody over to Paris with a sketch pad and a paper, a sketch pad and a pencil, and they would sketch the designs as they came down the runway and then go back and do a full sketch so that they could get it and send it over to New York so that the warehouses would be able to knock off some copies. So this isn't something that started to happen because of YouTube or because of, you know, the luxury community or anything like that. That's historically been the way they've developed merchandise to put in these shops. And it was just amazing. Like, they talk about how they tried to hide it when some of the shows didn't let them go in with anything, and they'd have to try to remember everything as quickly as possible so that they could go back and do it without getting caught, because they would get caught and, you know, they'd have their stuff taken away.
yeah, I that was fascinating to me. And like you especially said a lot that, especially when it comes to bags, there's only so many ways you can make a bag.
Right.
And so nobody's reinventing the wheel here with anything. And I mean, that was a huge, huge deal in those places to
Yes.
have their sketch artists or the women that they had hired going to those shows to steal the designs. So basically, so they wouldn't have to pay to purchase them, they could bring them back, make them cheaper,
Right.
and get them out to the public. And part of me is like, oh, that's kind of crappy, and part of me is like, no, because otherwise, how would other women be able to afford some of these things?
Exactly. All right. So I marked off a piece over here from the book that I want to read. And they talk about how the women love the Parisian designers, but when the public so attuned to Parisian fashions, garment district manufacturers were forced to pay attention to new styles from abroad rather than simply recycle the previous season's clothes. A new system was created whereby New York's needle trade began importing and copying French designs. Manufacturers and wholesalers, as well as buyers from the country's large department stores, specialty stores, and even small regional chains, were representatives sent representatives to France to attend the couture shows. There, they would buy select Paris models, so they would buy a sample, as haute couture outfits were known, and take them back to Seventh Avenue, where they were brazenly copied and reinterpreted for the American mass market. So they would buy a sample. They were given money to actually buy the original. And then they were taken to Seventh Avenue, which is where the garment district is. And if anyone's ever seen The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, that's where Maisel's husband's father, he owned a factory in the garment district. So it would be a very similar sort of setup where you had all the machines and all the women cranking out the dresses, but part of what they would do would be to disassemble the original, copy it, and crank out the copies. So it says in New York in 1928, you could meet one lady in a Chanel she bought on the Rue Cambon for $200. Hawes, the American designer in Paris, wrote she could meet a lady who bought the same dress at Hattie Carnegie for $250. The lady could meet another lady who bought the same Chanel at Lord & Taylor for $39.50. And there were other ladies who also bought the same Chanel, well, maybe not the same material, but the same design for $19.50 or $10.50. So we're talking back to the 1920s. So this is not anything new. People did this. And by the way, Hattie Carnegie was a designer. What she's the most famous for is costume jewelry. Very, very famous for costume jewelry. It's very collectible and it's very pricey if you find any on the secondhand market. So that's one of the names to look for, especially with brooches. A Hattie Carnegie brooch is very, very collectible and use beautiful Aurora Borealis stones and really beautiful designs. So just throwing that out there. So, and she had a shop in Manhattan at the time. So here's an ad. Lord & Taylor recognizes a new trend towards clothes of, by, and for the American woman as created by 3 American designers. So they did actually have 3 people that they employed to make clothing. And it was supposed to be their own interpretations, but they were kind of just like bland knockoffs of whatever was put out there. So there you have it. But at Bendel, they actually did travel to places. Geraldine paid people to be buyers to go out, and they would buy originals of things that were like far and wide from unknowns, total unknowns. So if they liked it, they would buy it and they would put it in the shop. So if you bought it, it was an original and it would just be gone. So the one thing that I really didn't like and I wasn't aware of is how Bendel basically catered to the super slim woman and that they only carried extremely small sizes.
I hated that
Oh,
as much as I wanted to like Geraldine for being like a trendsetter and her ideas for Bendel were awesome. And I liked that she actually, because they couldn't really compete with the big box store, how she would let her buyers go out and bring in unknowns. I
right.
love everything. But then, oh my gosh, this constant need for
And
every,
here's Geraldine with Buster,
yeah,
by the way.
be small and tiny and petite, and that those are the only ladies, and it pretty much as said as those were the only ladies she wanted in the store.
Right,
So it wasn't even that just the clothing, like she didn't want anybody
right.
to buy anything from their store unless there was just this little petite person. And I'm thinking, well, okay, that's a problem right there. That really bothered me.
I mean, how do you do business that way? It really just doesn't make any sense because even at that time in the 60s, you were eliminating a huge portion of the majority. And we're not talking about, people who are a normal standard size. We're talking anybody that was above like a size 4, they just didn't have any clothing for. And I can tell you that did change. That did change in the 80s and in the 90s. They had things for everybody. But I don't know if they had plus sizes. I couldn't tell you that, but I know as far as clothing, they did carry regular standard size clothing. But in the 60s, no, she would only buy smalls. It was kind of like that Brandy Melville like one size fits all if you're small.
Small.
Yeah, which is just absolutely bizarre. But she did break through a lot of American designers, including Ralph Lauren.
Yeah.
She was one of the first places to buy Ralph Lauren designs. Carlos Falchi, who got his start then. Who else? Calvin Klein. I'm pretty sure young Calvin Klein was one of the people who started at Bendel.
Yeah, she had a lot of people she helped get their starts.
But I thought that that was just really bizarre. Oh, Stephen Burrows. I wanted to talk a little bit about Stephen Burrows, who was an African American designer, and he was known for the disco look in the 70s. And I remember hearing his name, and I went on eBay and saw some of his designs that you can still buy now on eBay, and some of his originals are insanely expensive. But I would like to get a scarf or something that has his name on it, because he actually influenced so many people after him because he used such innovative materials. So it was great.
I was really surprised at that, especially, because definitely there was, they only wanted, like, the department stores were all looking, as much as they were trying to bridge out and reach the some regular, like, housewives or whatever. um there was still a lot of bias in a lot of different areas, but yet then he comes on the scene. I mean, and it was, I just, that impressed me as well, that
Yes,
he was really given such a big,
he was revered, but they
yeah.
said that one of his issues was he was out partying at Studio 54 with a lot of these people, and sometimes he'd have a hard time actually doing what he needed to do to get the collections out. But he was popular. He was very well liked. He was very popular. Liza Minnelli and Cher were two people that were regular customers of his, and he really just captured the scene at the time. So if anybody really wants to go and have a look, I really would suggest you go and look up Stephen Burrows and appreciate some of the work that he did. His prints are phenomenal. He did a lot of really beautiful prints, a lot of lycra, a lot of jersey fabrics, and like kind of flowy materials. But he was really very cool.
Yeah, uh, that that was cool. I And it's funny how these stores all had their own, like, you kind of knew them for certain things. And because I have to chuckle, when I lived in Syracuse for a year, I was looking for a part-time job, and I applied at Lord and Taylor,
Oh,
and at the mall there in Syracuse. And they told me that I got offered a job, but they told me I had to wear a skirt to work every day,
uh-huh.
and I had to wear a nice blouse, and that you got minimum wage. And I'm like, oh, and a heel. Had to have a heel. And I
Yes.
and this was the 2000s, so we're not talking
Oh,
older.
that's crazy.
This
That's crazy at that time, sure.
I thought, wait a minute. I have to wear a nice skirt, a
Mhm.
nice blouse, a heel, and you're going to pay me minimum wage? I could do that at McDonald's
Right.
and not have to wear that other stuff and make minimum wage.
Right.
So I told them no. And I worked for the Bonton. But it just I was just shocked that even now, even at that point in the 2000s, and that made me kind of see, that uh, I can kind of see where their downfall was, because I think they kept the kind of prim and proper just a little too
Yes.
long. And I don't.
Yeah, and I think that that hurts a lot too. So I worked at Macy's in, when was it? Mid 90s? Was before my current job, so maybe 92, 93. I wasn't there all that long. I left as soon as I got hired at my current job, but I worked for Prescriptives Cosmetics, which was an Estee Lauder company, and I was, hey Winnie, and I was counter manager for Prescriptives. And we were paid part from the company and part from Macy's. So Macy's paid half of our salary, and then we got an override. And because I was the counter manager, I got a 1% override of what the other sales girls made at the counter, which didn't add up to all that much money, but I guess it really wasn't that bad because when I went to my professional job, it turned out to be the same for that first year. But when you went to work every day, you had to wear the Prescriptives uniform, which had to be a knee length skirt, couldn't be any shorter, couldn't be any longer, black, or black pants. If you wore the skirt, you had to wear a heel. If you wore the pants, you could go with the lower shoe, but they had to be black leather. You had to wear a white t-shirt that was, round collar like this so that it peeked through because the lab jackets had a V. You had to wear your hair up. And then the rep would come, and if you were wearing makeup that was not Prescriptives, she'd spot it on you. Like, how in the hell do you look at somebody and know what brand lipstick they're wearing?
Right?
And she'd say, it's not Prescriptives. So I remember one day I went in, it must have been towards the end of my run there, and maybe my rep was there a day or two before. Only had to wear stockings. You weren't allowed to go bare legs. You had to wear black tights. I remember, and my hair was permed at the time. It was long and it was permed, and I had it down. And I thought, oh God, what happens if they come? What happens if they come? If they see me with my hair down, I am in trouble. Like, what is going to happen? So, yeah, I was just like sucking in my breath. And then I got reamed out once at one of our meetings because I pulled out, what did I say? It might have been like the striker of a book of matches
Oh,
to fix my nail because my nail had a chip in it. We weren't allowed to wear nail polish either because Prescriptives didn't sell it. Hence why, I was getting the snag on my nail. And I had to do it really quick because I said, oh, geez, I said, if I touch my legs and my stockings run, I'm going to get in trouble. Do you know my rep came and she called me out and said that I set a bad example for the rest of the girls because I was supposed to be listening, and I fixed my nail and I said, there were two bitches. One was Janet and one was Lisa, and this bitch was Janet. Janet, oh God, Janet was a nightmare, but Lisa was like an ogre. And I remember the day that I started, she had to bring me my uniform. And Jane, no lie, I weighed somewhere around 115 pounds at the time, and I think I wore like a size 4 jacket. Do you know she brought me a size 16 lab coat that was so huge on me? I mean, I couldn't fit in a size 16 now, let alone then. And she said, it looks fine. I said, no. I said, Lisa, I said, this does not look fine. Well, what do you think you need? I said, I need a small. I said, maybe it wouldn't look that horrible in a medium. I said, but I'm floating in this. And this woman that I worked with, her name was Linda, and she was a sweetheart. Linda looked at me and she said, that woman is just plug nuts. She said, how in the hell? She said, like, what is she trying to do? And I said, I have no idea. And then there was Blair who got demoted, and I was then her supervisor. So that was not fun. But yeah, I mean, working at these stores was just a pressure cooker and really just very, very hard to deal with. Very, very tough to be in that environment and to have to put up with that for what winds up to be really little money.
Right.
So,
Yeah,
but
that's
yeah.
I couldn't do it when I heard that. That you this, that, this, and I'm like,
Uh-uh.
and someone in the comments mentioned like, yeah, you should get a like basically a stipend or something for clothing.
Right.
Gonna do that, but yeah, no. And it was like, oh, you could start, can you start next week? And I'm thinking, okay, this girl does not have enough skirts. I was a stay-at-home mom, enough skirts and blouses and nylon
Right.
and shoes to start next week. Wearing just like no.
Well, I felt the same way because I had just gotten out of teaching. I might have been out of work for a short time, and yet they expected that I was going to have hundreds of dollars to buy their makeup because they did give you gratis, but it was very little and you had to be there for a while. So she didn't even damage out product to give to me. So I'd have to get in there early and use the testers
Oh my
until I got a hold of some makeup. So I was like, you know, why wouldn't you at least hook some people up or, give somebody a wardrobe stipend so that they could go out and buy the shoes? Because you have to have comfortable shoes to be able to stand for all those hours and, not kill yourself.
God.
And, you had to have the white t shirt and you had to have enough supply of tights so that if something happened to them or, you had something the following day. Yeah, it is ridiculous and hilarious at the same time. So
Yeah,
yeah, but as a regular person, Jane, there's just no way. I mean, they could kiss it. You want me to get
right.
all dressed up for minimum wage? Not happening.
Right. Exactly.
No.
Yeah, that was a no-go for me too. Yep. Nope.
So, and they talked about how, like back in the day, working at these department stores was one of the only legitimate professions that became available for women. And that up to a certain point, it was mainly men. And I have a book that you need to read called Summer at Tiffany. And it's about two girls who were college students.
The, um, I, I know,
Eva recommended it to you.
I know, I am friends with the author on Facebook.
Oh my God, you're kidding
Yeah,
me.
she's 100 and is she 105 now?
Oh my God.
Yeah, I read that book because what is her Hart, Marjorie Hart.
Yes, that's it.
Yes, because I wondered if she was related to Maud Hart Lovelace. Um, but I read
I
that book.
never made the connection, but it was always like kind of back there.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I posted on Facebook about her and she contacted me and she was
Wow.
like, I can't believe you just, that anybody's reading my book anymore. It really made my
Wow.
day, yada yada. So I sent her a friend request and she replied. Um and yeah, as far as I know, she's still alive.
That's amazing.
She had been playing what she played the violin or the
Cello, I
viola.
think.
What was it? Cello?
I think she played cello. Yeah.
Yeah, she had been playing up until a lot in her really late years,
Wow.
but her daughter also is on sometimes and posts stuff, not real frequently anymore, but
Oh,
yes,
that's amazing.
yes.
Guys, the book is fabulous, and I really recommend it to anybody. It was just incredible. These two girls leave college and go to New York City for the summer and get jobs at Tiffany's. And they were the first women to ever work at Tiffany's. It's amazing.
It's a phenomenal book. It is, yes.
So Jan says she worked at Von Maur in 1999. Pay is very good, and they required us to wear a dress, not heels. They just recently dropped that code. Well, that's a good thing. She said that's a great place to work at, by the way. Well, I can tell you from experience, Macy's was horrific.
I
Horrific.
on but it was a different it's so different in when I was in Syracuse and I remember I was training and use the register or whatever and I'd want to go to anyways I'd observe everybody around me and there
Uh
was
huh.
people working. I was at the checkout because I always like to cash people out. And there were two girls working and they were talking, and there was a customer that wanted their help. So the customer went, "Excuse me." And one of the girls turned to the customer and said, "Just a minute, we're done. We're not done talking yet."
Oh my God.
And then she went on with her conversation. It reminds me of a scene in that movie. I think it's Made in Manhattan. I think they go into Henry Bendel's and do someone
Okay.
same thing. And I'm like, that is what it was like. So when the customer had to wait till the two girls were done, when
Oh
they
my God.
I went over there and I said, "Are you allowed to do that?" And they're like, "What?" And I said, "No,
Ugh.
customer, we did help her." I said, "But you told her to wait while you finished your conversation." She goes, "Right, that's rude to interrupt us." And I said, "If
Oh my God. Oh
that
my God.
would not happen, I mean, if a owner of anybody saw you do that to a customer, you would be done. You would be out the door. You would be
We used to get secret shopped. And if somebody came through and secret shopped you and you got an evaluation like that, you'd be out on your ass in a minute.
yeah,
A minute. That's incredible.
yeah, I could not believe, and they all did it. I mean, it was just like every day, um, they all be chatting and stuff, and I'd be helping everybody. I'm running around like a crazy woman because that's how
That's
we did stuff.
infuriating.
Yeah, it was interesting, but I to get back to your point, I really found that really interesting. Um, and I guess I knew in the back of my head, but didn't think about it, about how men were the salespeople and stuff,
Yes.
that women being salespeople and especially then advancing up higher, like to be a supervisor, was almost unheard of at
Yes.
the time. And I'm thinking it almost, and it's not the same, but it almost reminds me of how certain names that are now female names used to be male, like Shirley. I know
Right.
a man's name previously, and things like that. It's like some things we just are from so far back now that we don't remember
Hmm.
that they used to be common. And that really struck me
That's
about
one of them.
yeah, about how women, they weren't the salespeople. They weren't, that was new for them
Right.
to come out and be able to do that. And I'm thinking, well, now they all are. Anybody is. And wow, to think that
Now it's
does,
considered more of a female job unless you're working in specific areas where
yeah,
there's more men.
yeah. I totally, like I said, I knew in the back of my head I had to have known that, but like
Yep.
to read it and have it dawn on me that, oh my gosh, yeah, like so then it even puts it into, I mean, just makes it all the more incredible that especially like Hortense and Dorothy, especially.
Yeah.
It's like what Dorothy was with Lord and Taylor since the 20s, was it?
Yep.
I'm like, holy mackerel. I mean, that was just uh, that it makes it all the more incredible.
Yes. And they were respected too. They were respected by the staff at the stores. They were respected by the customers. And which one thing that I do want to throw out is that the department stores at the time were one of the only places where it was considered acceptable in the 20s for women to go alone.
So
That it was safe. It was an environment where they were supposed to be catered to, and that these were things that were, for women mostly, because they would be the ones to decorate the house and do the shopping for the family. So they were encouraged to go there to shop, but not necessarily to go out and work because it was frowned upon for women to work outside of the home. And that's partly what Hortense attributes, her failing marriage to, which we already talked about that, how that was kind of a setup in the first place. And yeah, in a way, working outside the home did ruin her marriage, which was already ruined to
right,
begin with.
right,
So yeah, I mean, it was definitely a place where excuse me, again, as a woman, They wanted to know, what do women like? What would attract them? And was it Dorothy who decided to put the display of the hats and the umbrellas near the entryway at Lord and Taylor? I
Oh,
think it might have been.
yeah. That was a really that was awesome. There were so many of the things
Yeah,
that were like, but it's typical of men like to think they know what women want,
right.
but
No, but as a woman and having her eyes, she's like, no, you have to move it here because this is going to be the first thing that people see. And her product placement made the items sell out. So just having a feel for, you know, what women want as a woman shopper was really a big deal and helped turn things around a lot. Oh, the other thing that I thought was really interesting, and I want to pick up a copy of oh, what was the name of the book? Polly, I have it written down.
I tried finding that,
The
and
Lord and Taylor book. Yes.
yes, on eBay it's like 100 and some bucks, so I did
Uh-huh.
it. Yes, I tried looking for that. Saved as a favorite on my eBay right now.
Me too.
Polly.
Polly, help a girl out.
Oh, it's something about the.
Here it is. Polly Tucker. Polly Tucker was a book that was basically, it was meant to be a book, but it was actually a marketing tool to help women feel better about working in retail and make them think about making retail an okay profession. And Polly Tucker was a character that they just kind of picked out. She moves to the big city and she decides to get a job at a department store, and she has this totally swinging life due to her job. She meets new people, she gets a boyfriend, she's making money, she has an apartment, and it was just basically, a PR lesson for folks to really feel good about working there. But it became very popular and they sold it for a long time because people wanted to know about Polly.
Yes,
But I thought that that was just hilarious.
that was awesome. I mean, the book, what I really like too about the book is there's so many characters that we did get to read about, even though there might have only been a chapter,
Right.
or a thing like, Bessie Harrison becomes a buyer, and the one there's the one with the African American woman who.
Oh, I was going to mention her too.
Yeah.
Maggie Walker. That was amazing. So, Maggie Walker had a department store in New Orleans, and it was called St. Luke's Emporium. And it was African American owned. Hey, Eva. It was African American owned, and it was for African Americans to go to shop. Not because no one else could shop there, but they wanted to be able to have a black business where people can go and make money, and that people could go in there and support other African Americans. And it flopped, which was crazy because the sentiment was that if they went there, that the merchandise wasn't going to be as good at what was available at the other stores, when in fact that wasn't the case at all. It was a fantastic store and it really should have taken off but didn't, and there was a lot of care that was put into it. There was a lot of time that was put into creating it, and it eventually merged with a bank, and the bank became the longest black owned bank until it merged with, or until 2005, I should say. So they just kind of absorbed the store, but the store didn't take off because they didn't have the shoppers, which was just crazy. But she was actually brilliant, this Maggie Walker, just to come up with the idea. And to try this idea out was really fabulous.
And I'm looking through this too, as far as making working in a store, it was like a career goal. I mean, looking back, and there's pictures in the book about like Lord and Taylor. They had a huge employee training program that you actually like went to school for and
Yes,
waited. In the store, they had their own dentist office, so that you
yes,
like it was like really a big. It was a destination place. I mean, they really, but it's really funny to me because it's kind of like they really made it be able to take care of you. But then
uh-huh.
that's when men were primarily employed there.
Very true. Very
And
true.
as it progressed, they don't. What stores now have their own dentist? I mean, even my work has a medical professional there, um, but never a dentist.
No. We
Dent-
had no medical when I was at Macy's. I don't remember getting medical benefits from the store at all. And I know that there was nobody on the staff if there was an emergency. There were no medical personnel that were available at all of any kind. But they did try to provide for the employees well enough back then so that they were able to maintain their health and feel and look their best when they went out on the floor. Also, they had gotten the idea to put in restaurants in the department stores because they wanted people to stay there longer. So eventually they got restaurants, the hair salons, so that you could essentially go, and they had men's lounges for places for the men to go and to kick their feet up and get pampered while the women were doing their shopping, which I think a lot of men would appreciate even now
yeah, I
because
do.
they could keep busy with all that
Yeah, it really was a time of when shopping was more of
event.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And it felt luxurious.
That's what I was trying to
The
say.
whole experience, that was really a luxury experience. It wasn't this quasi luxury experience that, maybe if you go to Cartier, they're going to pop a bottle of champagne if you buy an item. But this was, you walked in the door, the doorman led you in, and you were pampered. They had salons where you can go and try on all of your clothes, private salons. They had areas where you can go for your furs, people that did fur storage and whatnot, and the fur salons. They had their own seamstresses, which really kind of died out. I know Nordstrom used to have it. They would have a tailoring service, but they had tailoring services right there. So you went in, you could get whatever the heck you wanted and, leave knowing that everything was going to be taken care of for you and you felt special. And that special feeling is just not there anymore. I don't care really where you go,
I would agree. It's
you
unfortunate,
know.
and and it, even thinking about the experience of Chanel or Cartier, whatever. Number one, it's not luxurious anymore.
No.
Each store has its own reason why it's not. I mean, like Hermes, it's not luxurious to walk into a store, know you have plenty of money to buy what you want to buy, but nobody's going to offer you to, to to let you have one. And the fact that that is the exception, not the rule. Um, yeah, I can't think of a store anywhere where you go in and feel pampered, or I the closest thing I can relate to is I've been going to the same hairdresser now for probably 15 years, maybe 20,
Oh, wow.
and she's awesome. I luckily started going to her right
Your
after
hair is
I
beautiful.
started. Thank you.
You're
It's
welcome.
Karen. And every time I walk into her to get my hair done, every time it feels like the first time.
Oh,
She
that's great.
sets me down. She talks about it. How am I feeling? She checks my hair. She,
Uh-huh.
what I might need. What do we want to do with color? What do we want to do with length? And that is the only place I can think of anywhere that is anything remotely close to that. And that's not even normal because I quit going to tons of people because they. I had one guy one time. I'm running late, so I can't dry your hair.
Oh, we have a salon in my neighborhood that if you want your hair blown after it's cut and color, you have to pay for it. If not, you could bring your own hair dryer. And I was like, I never heard of that in my entire life. Like, what's that all about? I just don't get it.
Yeah, I
Who would do that?
right. That was the last time I saw it, and I was a good customer, good tipper, good everything, and I had been going to him for about a year when that happened, and that was the last time I went to him. And then I had another girl I really liked, and she ended up. I had to call in sick one time because I had the flu, and then when I came in to get my hair done afterwards because I rescheduled, she said, "Did you really have the flu?" Or
Oh,
you just not wanna come, or something like that. I'm like, "Okay, we're done."
oh my
"Really?
God.
I'm gonna make an excuse to not go to my haircut?" I'm like,
That's insane. Oh
yeah,
my God, that's insane. See,
yeah.
my hairdresser knows, and I've been going to her for like 10 years. If it's bad weather, she knows not to see me because it's not close. It's not far, but it's not close enough for me to get there in 2 minutes. Like I have to drive on the road that we went to when we went to the train station to go to New York, which is just 2 lanes and a hell of a lot of traffic. So I'm not going to chance it in snow or thunderstorms, or any time where there's going to be a risk factor. So she knows, and she'll tell me, no problem, we'll just reschedule and she'll put me in wherever. But yeah, that's just crazy. But I think from my own experience going to any of the luxury retailers, two things. Number one, it depends on the person that you're dealing with. And if you have an essay that you click with, which my Hermes essay is left last week, and I'm really sad, and I need to
Mhm.
find somebody new. And God, I feel like a lost puppy. But, you know, I knew if I called her and if I wanted something, she put it on hold for me. So, that was just a great thing. And I think things like that aren't things that they do for every customer without paying for the item. So they would just put the sticker on it and, say, I'll walk in and I'll give you, you know, give give your name to whoever and they'll ring you up. So like little things like that are really good. The second thing is I really appreciate it when essays are honest. Like for instance, I was at Chanel once or maybe twice, and I was talking like I would like a classic flap at some point, or I like certain bags, but I said most people want a Chanel jumbo. I said, but I don't want a Chanel jumbo. And they looked at me and they shook their head and they said, no, you don't want a Chanel jumbo. They said that bag's too big for you. And I remember telling that story to somebody. I don't remember who it was. And they said, oh, they should never tell you that. They should never tell you what you should and shouldn't get. But I appreciate that because for somebody to know me and to know my tastes and to assess whether that's going to be an appropriate item for me shows me that you're paying attention, number one. Shows me that you're not just trying to sell the most expensive thing there, that you're really looking out for what the needs are. And they basically they said, like, no, you don't want a jumbo, you want the medium large at the biggest because the jumbo is just going to be too big. It's got a really, really long chain. It's really big and it's really heavy, and that's not going to be perfect. That to me shows like, hey, you're really looking out for me. And I think that that needs to happen. Or if I go and I try something on, I don't want somebody to say to me, oh, that looks really good. I remember years ago, I had a friend who you may have heard me mention before. We called her Kathy Boom Boom. Kathy Boom Boom at the time was built kind of like I am now. She had quite a rack. She was very hourglass, and she would wear, unfortunately, clothes that just were entirely too tight for her. Because she liked the attention, but some things, there's a difference between being body conscious and having clothes that are too tight. And when something pulls, and when something you could see the seams are splitting, or you could see like the back of it rides up or the front of it rides up, it doesn't fit and you need to try something else. And I remember going with her to places where she was so squozing into things. Eva loves the boom boom stories,
Oh,
yes.
yeah.
And the salespeople would say to her, "Oh, you look so good in that." And I'm thinking to myself, "No, you don't. No, you don't. Like,
What are
this
you
is
looking
not
at?
something you can wear." So, a funny Kathy Boom Boom story. She had a blouse, and I remember this distinctly. It was a short sleeve kind of sweater with a scoop neck, and it had sort of like differently colored stripes that kind of went on an angle around. And her mother said to her, her mother always called her Catherine. Her mother said, "Catherine, you shouldn't wear that." She said, "Your chest is too large." And Kathy burst out and she said, "Stop using those big words."
Oh my god!
I mean, her brother, when I tell you, we were both on the floor laughing. Her brother, Franny, was like pounding the floor. He couldn't catch his breath. He said, "My sister still there. Why in God's name would you say that's a big word?" And we laughed about that for years
Oh my!
and years and years. It was just so, so funny. But when she was younger, those are kind of the things that would happen. And Kathy's very good natured. I mean, it's not like I'm saying anything nasty about her. She remembers a lot of these stories. And she evolved and she changed over time. And she'd always tell me, "Oh, you dress too conservative. You dress too conservative. You're really covered up." And I'm like, "Well, no, I just don't want all my bits out." And I didn't have a whole lot of bits at the time anyway to even show. But it was just absolutely hilarious. So what brought me onto that? Oh, talking about people and saying what looks good and what doesn't look good. Because ladies, let's be honest, what size you wear, nobody knows that. Like, that's between you and the clothes. What matters is how you look in those clothes. And if you got to size up or you got to size down, you got to do it. Nobody's going to know. Like, that's a whole thing inside your head that some women just can't get past. And they'll always say, "Oh, well, I'm a size 8 or I'm a size 6." No, you're whatever size you fit in, because I can tell you one thing, vanity sizing absolutely exists, number one. And number two, every design house has a different fit model. And every fit model has different measurements. And they all typically fit model from a size 6 or a size 8. And those measurements for the fit model can vary greatly, greatly. So you really don't know if that size is going to fit you. Like, I went into Hermes, and I don't remember who was with me, if it was Eva that was with me. And of course, I was tickled to death because I tried on one of their Twilane sweaters, and my essay was like, "Oh, why don't you try it on?" I'm like, "That thing is not going to fit me. Like, I know I'm not going to fit into any of your sweaters." Do you know I tried it on and that thing did fit me? Like, I could have used a little bit of extra room. Jane, it was a size 34, which is a size 4, okay? I said, "What the hell sizing is this all about? Because there's no way I should fit into this at all by any stretch." And I noticed, even when we were at the sample sale, their sizing is all over the place. So you might fit into this in a certain size. Okay, Eva says yes, it was her. You might fit into a particular size in this style, but it doesn't mean anything. You have to try it on. So, and somebody who is really caring and wants to make sure that you look good is going to tell you, here's a bunch of things, go ahead and try them on. And I think that that is truly, truly lacking now, because these salespeople are just basically there to hand you the stuff and ring it up, and like that's it. They're
Yeah,
not going to say.
I think part of what you're talking about is why YouTube and our channels get views is because we people want to know this stuff, and
Right.
especially when it like comes to bags. You're paying a lot, and I don't even if you're buying even Coach, if you're buying even something from Target's got some really cute bags lately. You're
Yes.
paying a good amount of money for something, and um I want to know all the good, the bad, and the ugly about it, and if there's something that's going to be fussy or whatever, I
Hmm.
want to know ahead of time, because just looking at the bag, sometimes my eyes just about pop out of my head when I see
Yep.
something and I think it's beautiful. And I'll tell you, like right now, I'm using that Dooney and Burke bag, but I'm telling you, that damn thing sticking straight up like this right now. Luckily, someone in the comments said, stick a towel in it and
Oh.
fluff it down. And so right now, if I could show you it's got a bath towel in the handles right now, pushing.
Oh, that's smart.
And I'm like, thank you, Jesus, for that someone out in the comments told me that. And it's just little things like that. Like then I can make an informed decision. If
Right.
if I like something enough that I don't care that it's fussy, then fine.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
I know, and I can see now, because my son always says, whenever I say, "Oh, I'm not sure what I'm going to do a video on," and he's like, "We'll do a bag review," and I'm like, "I've done a lot." He goes, "You've done a bag review on every purse," and I said, "No."
No.
He goes, "There are people out there, Mom, that want you to do that bag review, so in case they think about buying the bag, they'll know the good and
Exactly.
bad about it," and I'm like, yeah, that makes so much sense, and I find that out more now as I've been delving into brands that I'm not as familiar with. So,
And I want to know, what does this bag look like over time? Because people are under the expectation that when you pull that thing new out of the box, that it's going to look like that in 3 years, and it's not. If it's leather, it's going to patina, leather patinas, leather wrinkles, leather patinas. If it doesn't, it's not leather. And to have the expectation that it's not going to do that just drives me crazy, because you know that it's going to. And to ask, and I remember I asked somebody once, can you show that bag, later on? So I want to know how the leather is wearing. Oh, well, my bag doesn't have any wear. I'm not talking about wear and tear. I'm talking about, what does it look like? That's something that Hermes tells you right on the website. It says this slouches over time. This develops a shine over time. Whatever it does, I want to see it. I want to know. Unless the person doesn't ever keep the bags. I mean, you want to go back, and you want to know. And, I don't think that it's fair. One of the things that I love about leather is knowing that my bag is going to do certain things over time. I don't want it to look brand new like it's out of the box a year from now, because it'll look stiff like cardboard. You need to go back and you want to know, like, how's this working out? Especially when you're talking about some of these classic bags and the classic shapes. Everybody might have the bag, but not everybody is going to have the same opinion. You know, and the other thing is, I want to know the bag reviews, and I could tell you that there was another YouTuber who would just unbox, 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 unbox. And when someone, and I remember reading the comments, somebody said, can you do like a review? Well, I don't have to do a review because I already went over everything. My unboxings are thorough. That tells me absolutely nothing. Like, watching you take this out of the box tells me nothing. I want you to compare it to something. I want to know what fits. I want to know how it feels. I want to know if it gets heavy. I want to know if the handles are comfortable. If you take it out of the box, you're not helping me at all, other than just showing me what it looks like. So I know a lot of times, and I know you do it too, you'll unbox it, you'll go over things and then go back to it later, when you do your bag switches and whatnot, and talk about it more. I don't want to just know one thing. I mean, it really needs to be enough information because I don't have the money. I mean, I'm just being completely honest. I don't have the money, whether it's $200 or $2,000, to go out and buy something that's going to be useless.
Yeah. Oh, amen to that.
I
That's
mean,
for sure.
just trying to sell things. I have a vintage Coach bag that I decided to sell because I decided it had a little bit too much corner wear, listed for $40. And it's been 3 months and no one's bought it. So you could tell, I mean, you could watch these things all you want. I have a piece of jewelry. It sat there for months and it's at half of what it sells for retail. Piece of silver. And nobody's buying it. Like, excuse me, there's reasons why you want to sell something at certain points, but if you have a pile full of stuff and you're going to just turn around and sell it, well, you're just lighting half that money on fire.
Yeah.
That's it. But anyway, so the point was, like, I want that customer service. I want people to be honest with me and tell me what they really think about it. That to me is a luxury experience. You
Y-
know, even when, I and other people have bought jewelry at Hermes, whether it's fine jewelry or costume jewelry, and my SA would always say, you could do this with it, you could do that with it, how to care for the piece, what it will look good with, whether this is really going to fit in with what she thinks you're going to like. I mean, that's a good salesperson.
Oh, for sure.
That's somebody you're going to want to go back to. And I remember when I took Winnie and Bill to Hermes, Bill was so tickled because he said, that's a real nice lady there. He said, that's a lady who's just down to earth and really wants to make people happy. And he was right. He said, you could feel comfortable telling her, like, yeah, I want it, I don't want it. So
Yeah. That's the kind to have for sure.
thanks for coming, Ashley. But yeah, I definitely want to know, stuff later. So can we talk about the biggest incident? Well, one of the biggest incidents that I found from the book that was a very telling story. The dismantling of the statuary at Bonwit Tower.
Oh, that I so I never been to New York, so you probably know about these places and have seen them. But oh my gosh,
I don't remember Bonwit that clearly. I remember after the fact when it was the little store. But yeah, that was just incredible. So Bonwit was selling the building, and the Met wanted to buy some of the sculptures that were there inside the building. I'm going to try to put this as gently as possible because I don't want to offend anybody. So they were very heavy concrete statues, but the Met decided that they had artistic and historical value and they wanted to put them in the museum. And the person who built a certain tower, Golden, on Fifth Avenue, was the buyer of said building. And when it came time to giving the statues to the Met, instead of giving the statues to the Met, they were basically thrown out of the window and smashed because that person decided that they didn't have any value. And a representative of that person who turned out to actually be that person because he would present himself as someone else that was a legal representative, said that it was too costly and that it wasn't effective to get those things and move them. So those pieces were, decided by someone else that the museum couldn't have them because it was too much trouble. And that was in the 80s. And it was really sad. And the same was supposed to happen to the Art Deco grating that was outside the building. And that also, unfortunately, mostly got trashed. So I know that there's a picture of that here. And yeah, it's just, okay, so you can see adjacent in this picture over here. That's the Art Deco metalwork. That was very pricey and really, really a beautiful thing. And yeah, it was just decided to do away with it. And that just made me sad.
Just the whole story of that, from the original man who started everything
Yep.
to have it end like that. That was, a lot of the things were really sad. I mean,
Yeah.
that um uh Dorothy dying at 66,
Yeah, that was a
Hortense
shame.
being just bitter and angry and never really, I don't know that she was ever really happy again, and Geraldine getting shoved out the door,
Yep.
and
And her
um
and Hortense's sons
y-
and their issues. I mean, that was really just tragic.
yeah,
So,
and the stores all ended too. It's
yeah,
just, how do we go from just, so it was like, even when I got to go to New York and we got to go to Saks, and oh, it's just incredible in those stores. To me, it was just like, it was like a museum.
they're
I mean,
landmarks. I mean,
they
they're landmarks. And the Lord and Taylor building was on 39th Street, and that was a beautiful building. I mean, I'm glad that I was able to go in it and shop in it. The same with Bendel, but it was the Bendel on Fifth Avenue. I mean, that was a beautiful building with Lalique crystal windows, and the decor inside was just, it was beautiful. It was whimsical. They used to get designers that nobody else had. They would get brands that nobody else had that were exclusive to the store. And now everything's just like so generic, and like the magic is gone. It's like you took the head off of Mickey Mouse in the middle of the Magic Kingdom. It's just not there anymore.
right, yeah, it's just, y- y- reading about it and how awesome it was, and how much thought and time went into things, and
Hmm.
they cared about the customers, and eh, it's all gone. It's all,
Yeah, the era. I mean, it's just done. We had a Bonwit here in Philly, and we also had, well, Lord and Taylor was in our John Wanamaker building, which was the original John Wanamaker building from, oh gosh, I forget how long ago. I want to say the 1910s. And it had a huge pipe organ that was one of the most famous features of the building. And they did a Christmas light show every year. This past year was the last one because they've sold the building. They're going to make it condos, and everything that was there is just gone. But they did preserve the pipe organ. The pipe organ is getting moved and put somewhere else. But the building itself was just absolutely magnificent. So when Lord and Taylor, well, when Wanamaker's closed, it became Hess. Then it became Lord and Taylor's, and then it became Macy's. And unfortunately, the Macy's was looted so often, and a security guard was killed, and business really took a nosedive. And that was one of the stores on Macy's chopping block. Oh, and that brings me to another thing. How many people knew that Macy's was a discount store when Macy's started? Macy's was a discount store. They would undersell everybody. That was their reputation. And when I was growing up, we had Bamberger's, which was the cousin. Well, it was the family branch of Macy's, And that was a lot. That was like the closest that you got to a luxury store.
Wow.
So
Wow.
it was just unbelievable. Like they would almost give things away if it brought traffic in the door.
Wow.
So that was pretty wild.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no. That definitely didn't know.
Yeah, but we knew from the book. But I would definitely encourage, even with this discussion, if you have any interest in luxury, if you have any interest in the history of these stores, and guys, I'm going to say something that's maybe a little bit sarcastic. If you've got time to scroll all the websites, you've got time to spend 10 minutes a day to read a book. Nobody doesn't have any time not to read at least something. Read it on your phone if you prefer on your phone. There's so many good books. We talked about Summer at Tiffany. We talked about When Women Ran Fifth Avenue. And I could make, yes, Mannequin. Thank you, Winnie. Winemakers is where the movie Mannequin was filmed. So if anybody saw Andrew McCarthy Mannequin and was it Kim Cattrall? I think it was
Yeah.
Kim Cattrall. And I'll tell you a story. One of my friends had a brush with greatness with Andrew McCarthy at Winemakers. So it was after school, and one of my friends used to take, he lived up here near me, where I live now at the time. So we both went to Temple, and he would have to take the subway from Temple downtown into Center City and then take the L, which is the elevated train, and then a bus. So he had quite the commute. So sometimes when he would get off at Center City, he'd go shopping. He used to like to go to Banana Republic. He used to like to go to Macy's. And he was browsing the shoe department, and there was Andrew McCarthy. And he said that Andrew McCarthy was there, and he was pissed off. And he was telling his assistant or whoever, I need a Perrier ASAP, ASAP. And people wanted an autograph and whatnot. And he was just like miserable. He's like, no, get away.
Wow.
And Mark was like, he said, I really just couldn't believe it. He's like, what a miserable piece of shit. That just busts my whole image up.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, so that was the story there. But yes, Wanamaker's was the store from Mannequin. When he says yummy, I'd lick his legs back in the day. Well, so would I. But it was a buzzkill to know that he was just being such a twit and just he always had kind of like this nervous Andrew McCarthy eye thing where his eyes looked everywhere but straight ahead, and he always looked like he was on edge about something. Well, turns out I think the guy really was on edge an awful lot. So yeah, so there was that. I
Wow.
don't think I ever saw them when they filmed Mannequin, but I've seen other films, from Philly, watching them film and whatnot. Yeah, Jolie, I do think that he's an introvert. I think that he's not really very much of a people person, and that kind of brings out. And he was really young at the time. So, everybody's entitled to a bad day.
True.
Everybody, I have them, Jame, I'm sure, although it doesn't seem it, you have them.
Oh my gosh. Today was one of them. About 10
Oh,
before I started, my hair was still up in a ponytail.
oh,
It was today was supposed to be my easy day, and it was a nightmare.
oh my God. Well,
My work was just everything
I started
for the
out
work.
So we had early dismissal today, and since my department has flex time, nobody gets in until 10 o'clock, which is the latest that you could get in for flex time. But I knew I had a lot of stuff to do, so I said, well, I'm not going to push it that late. But I was planning to get on the 8:45 train, which would have gotten me in at 9:15. So okay, 45 minutes, but still, I'm not being a push it till 10 o'clock. And I figured that extra 45 minutes, I can get a lot of stuff done. Of course, my train was a half hour late. Had to stand for a half hour till I got on. Got in. It was 10 o'clock by the time I actually drug myself through the office. And one of the things that I tried to do, I had to make corrections on, and it was 10 of 1 when I got it back, and we were getting loose at 1 o'clock. And I said, you know what? This just doesn't make any sense because I know my supervisor's not going to stay to check things over. And I'm not going to stay so that he could check this over on Friday. It's a holiday tomorrow and I am outie. Don't care. But I still have like this feeling. I always have this feeling like I failed because I couldn't get this one piece
Well,
done before the day is over. And I tried to do so much, so much, so much. And unfortunately, I couldn't do it all. But hey, I'll get over it. What can I say?
yeah. It was the day before a holiday usually because we have off tomorrow.
Uh huh.
We usually can get out by 2 o'clock. Yeah, no, that did not. And I'm thinking it's gonna be just this easy breezy day.
Yeah, forget it.
Also, or not out. I'm at home, but be done at 2. No, no, no. I was Mick just walked over there. I was still working, up until 5 o'clock. Yeah, it was.
Now, if I were home instead of having to drag into town, I would have worked past 1 o'clock and finished what I had to finish because there would have been no rush sitting at my kitchen table. I'd have still been at my kitchen table. Okay. But since since I had to get back on and God knows how long it was going to take me to get back home, bye bye. Oh my God, when he had 9 Zooms, Jesus. How do you do
Yeah,
anything? Like that's your whole thing.
that's
And
awful.
And yes, happy Juneteenth to all who celebrate. We should all celebrate, but of course, it's more important to people who were most affected. But, I think in our hearts, we need to celebrate that no one deserves to be treated unfairly and to recognize everyone as equals. Oh, Grace is Australian, so she doesn't know. Grace, Juneteenth is the anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation. So that's the day that the slaves were free people. So that's why it's celebrated and it's now a federal holiday. So of course, it's a time to just reflect and hopefully not make the same mistakes that we've made in the past in the future, obviously. So, it's certainly something to celebrate that we were able to overcome as a country this horrible thing that happened. So, and there'll be picnics and there'll be fireworks and there'll be lots of stuff happening. I know that there's lots of events, but I don't go to any big events. So I just try to avoid that, especially for all the summer holidays. It's just, I don't like to be out in the heat and in the crowds, and I just rather not.
You'd rather be in reading a book.
Exactly. I would rather be in reading a book. I have several that I'm finishing.
This book, though, like you were saying, people have time. The nice First off, it was very, very well written for a nonfiction book. Like, it was
Yes.
super interesting, and chapters and pieces are short. And
Yes.
so I think a lot of people get very overwhelmed if there's, like, chapters goes on and on. This is all kind of like little stories, and they go kind of back and forth between
Yep.
them in a bit. And um I'm so glad you recommended this to me because I had no idea about it. And
I'm glad that we got to read it. And
I
it really was
don't.
written more like a novel. It wasn't a dry nonfiction book. I mean, it was juicy. You really got into these characters and,
Yeah,
stuff that was going on. It's a really, really quick read.
absolutely.
So definitely recommend it. So we got to do another one. And I did finally pick up The Only Woman in the Room. So hint, hint, if you want to read that as well. I haven't gotten to it yet, but that's the one. It's a historical fiction about Hedy Lamarr.
Oh, yeah, I would be interested in that because I like that, how brilliant basically she
She
was.
was a
And
genius.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
I
cool.
I've read other, and I'm going to mix it up. This is Marie Benedict. So there's Marie Benedict and there's Melanie Benjamin, and both of them write historical fiction. I have not read another Marie Benedict book, but I've read a few Melanie Benjamins. But from what I know of her books, they're extremely well researched. So it's going to be fictionalized as far as like exact dialogue, but the historical facts are going to be true. So that's one of the things that I really enjoy about historical fiction. So I think that it's going to be a really good read. And I think that from the reviews that I've read, it's a phenomenal, phenomenal book. Oh my God, Jolie, she died in a condo near where you grew up? Wow.
That's crazy.
That's insane.
Wow.
I personally think she's one of the most beautiful women who was ever in Hollywood. Only next to Rita Hayworth, because I think that Rita Hayworth is the most beautiful. I love Marilyn, but those two really to me don't, I mean,
It's
they're just way
beautiful.
above.
Yeah.
And Lana Turner. I think that
Oh,
Lana Turner was amazing.
she's funny because she got, I think it was her start in an Andy Hardy movie. Uh,
Yes.
and I just, another one Donna Reed. She was in
Oh yes.
too. And so, well, and then he married, what's her name? But Mickey Rooney, boy,
You're
that's,
right. There is a song. Johnny Depp did do a song about Hedy Lamarr. Johnny Depp and Pearl Jam, Eddie Vedder.
oh,
And I heard that on the radio the other day. Um, I was just gonna say something. Darn. Oh, Lana Turner, you know the story about her daughter, that her daughter murdered Lana Turner's husband.
yes. And did Lana, no, who died?
Self-defense.
Yeah. But who died in the plane crash? Not Lana.
Oh, I don't remember.
Um, why did I think it was her, but it wasn't? Um, Clark, he was married to Clark Gable, was it?
Oh, oh, Carol Lombard? I think it was Carol
Yes.
Lombard.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I'm getting the two of those mixed up, but yeah, I know they don't look anything alike.
Bye, Dia.
But
Thank you so much for coming.
um, but I don't know where I was going with this, other than to just say that yeah, the Lana Turner story with the daughter, yeah, that was
That was crazy.
it. Was
Johnny Trumpato, was it?
I don't even know, but there's
I can't
a
remember.
lot of really good Hollywood stories out there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, really juicy ones. Very, very juicy ones.
I read one from I was worked at a gas station in California, the guy, but he was basically like a male gigolo pretty much. But told all about the Hollywood, especially men, but women as well. Had all I can't remember the name of the book now. I read it, but
Hollywood Babylon?
I don't know. Is that by it was he a gas station attendant? It was a guy.
No.
I can't
Uh-uh.
think of the name. I have it on my Kindle. Um, but yeah, yeah. I mean, there's just so many stories out there that are just like, wow,
Winnie read it. Winnie, what's the name?
where'd she? I loved his book.
What's the book, Winnie? What's the book?
I keep on wanting to grab my phone and look, and I'm like, oh, you dummy, you're on your phone. Oh my God.
We'll have to find out.
Yeah.
We'll
Uh,
check it out and see what the book is because
yeah,
it sounds
Scotty.
really, really good.
Yeah, I think when he's got it, Scotty. That sounds right.
Okay. Or is she talking about Jeff Beck? I don't know.
Oh, type when he type like the wind.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Oh, The Secret History of Hollywood. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep.
I was going to write, but all I have is lip pencils. Scotty Bowers. Thank you,
That-
Winnie.
yep. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Oh, I gotta read this
It
now.
is
Yeah.
really something.
We love a good expose around here, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. It it was
Oh,
really
that's
something.
awesome. Well, I guess we're gonna have to end this soon because it's like after 9 o'clock. We've been talking for a while and we don't want to bore our audience, but this was so much fun. I had such a great time, Jane.
I did too. Now we gotta do another book. So
We definitely have to do another book. So if we could agree and do the Hedy Lamarr, we'll
I'm
post
in.
about it. And, whoever wants to join us and talk about the book, or if you just want to be here and learn some facts, hey, we're good with that, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah,
But
absolutely.
remember, 10 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, and you
Yep,
can download the book and scroll it on your phone.
right. Or listen to it. Yeah, so
Exactly. Listen to it in your car, and, boom, you got something good.
yeah, sounds good.
All right. Thank you all so much,
Thank you.
Jane. I love you.
Yes,
We got to get together one
y-
of these days soon.
we do.
Really,
We do.
this is just crazy. Jane is my cousin from another
Yes.
universe, and we just realized that we're cousins.
Yes, we
We're,
are.
we're like soul sisters. Oh my God, my battery is going.
Oh no.
Oh
Okay.
no, 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 no. All right.
Okay. Yep.
Thank you guys.
Yeah,
We'll
thanks.
see you later. Bye.
Bye bye.